Okay,
Move your
go for it.
pictures over here so I can see them. Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for the opportunity, and Tanya in particular, for inviting me to this group. I'm really excited to be part of Durham's sustainability kind of ecosystem. It's a relatively new world for me here, generally speaking, and so I am anxious to absorb the learnings and wisdom of anyone I can, and so really, really honored to be part of this community. So let me just pop along. Let's see. So as was mentioned, my name is Mitch Sava. I use the pronouns he, him, his, and I think I'm somewhere between month 3 and month 4 here at the Scrap Exchange. Joined in mid-February. Um, and it's been a wild few months already. Really, I'm absolutely loving it here, and so I'm excited to kind of tell you a little bit about what you might know already about us, but then also to talk about kind of the future and really tee up a question for all of you in terms of, again, tapping into your wisdom, your collective wisdom on things that you think the scrap could be working on to help us achieve our mission. So that's kind of what I'd love to chat about. I mean, again, a bit more about me. I've lived in Durham, I think, for 15 years now, approaching, or yeah, 15 years, which is amazing for me to run that math in my head. Before this, I lived in London, where I worked. I did actually a lot of work in the policy world, particularly in the creative industries and in the innovation world. And before that, I lived in San Francisco, and so about a half of my career is actually is kind of in the corporate world, doing innovation work, corporate ventures, innovation, spin outs, new products, new services, new business models, getting very heavily into kind of purpose-driven innovation and helping organizations and companies create new programs and products and services that don't just have a commercial impact, but also have a social impact as well. And that's kind of really a big part of what's led me to on my journey to here at the Scrap Exchange. So very excited to be here. Um, all right. So Scrap, for again, many of you might be quite familiar with the organization and hopefully have shopped here or had events here or done outreach events with us at some point in the past. But you may or may not know that we're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. So we were founded in 1991. Um, and our mission is what you see here. It's promoting creativity, environmental awareness, and community through reuse. And so the big words, so we refer to ourselves kind of as the shorthand as a creative reuse center, but I really like to continue to refer back to our full mission, both with our board and our staff, to indicate kind of the full breadth of what we are about. A lot of us, a lot of organizations, well, I'll get to a lot of people see us as kind of as just the thing we do, and which is wonderful, but then kind of miss potentially the opportunity of what we can do. So again, that's what I'm quite keen to chat with this group about. So my other shorthand for us kind of is we make used cool. And so this is a big part of what I'm thinking about in terms of, again, not just what we do, but how we message what we do, is how do we raise the profile of used and reuse? How do we think about the levers and the tools and the different models we can use to engage the public, both consumers, companies, industry, et cetera, to make used a bigger consideration and a bigger part of their consumption. And I think what we do, sometimes when I'm kind of in front of a big crowd and talking about this, I ask the group what they think about the word used, what kind of images pop into their brain. And I think often the concept of used and the word used has more of a negative connotation, or one that is grounded in the notion of scarcity, or that is something that we should do rather than we want to do. And that's what I think the scrap is exceptional and has exceptional and is reframing that narrative, reframing that message to making used something that we want to do and that we actively choose and seek out. And so that's what I think is our secret sauce, so to speak. So what is it that we do? So the primary model, sometimes I draw this as sort of an umbrella, so if our mission is the umbrella, the major interventions, the major kind of models we currently have here to execute against that mission is a retail operation, and there are two stores. So the first is what we refer to internally as the reused art store. That's the thing that's been around for a zillion years and that you all are probably quite familiar with. And so, famous for the blue barrels that are filled with bottle caps and pipettes and crayons, etc., and is kind of beloved by people of all ages to come in and be inspired and to create stuff with. And so, I mean, this is a very kind of different environment for me, I will admit, very different work environment. And so it's something I've been embracing, kind of the world of the scrap. In addition to the reused art store, we also have a thrift store, which is again, some of you may have been in. This is a newer intervention. In fact, if I recall, Madeline, one of the folks on this team on this call, who used to work at the scrap, I think was instrumental in standing up the thrift store. And so it's kind of across the parking lot a little of the ways, and again, a lot more square footage, a bit more of a conventional thrift store, although that's something that we're also in the process of trying to reimagine. I've kind of encouraged the team to think about the thrift as to say, hey, again, thrift isn't just a thing that we're doing to make money to put into our mission. Thrift is a big part of the mission. So the way we approach thrift can and perhaps should be different from the way other thrift stores look and feel and act. What can we really learn from this business that we can potentially evangelize to others? So the thrift is the other kind of big growing, and roughly, well, actually, I think I have a revenue slide somewhere in here. In addition to those kind of two major interventions, those two big components, we also have a very vibrant programs and outreach team. So we do programs here at the Scrap Exchange. We have a couple of different rooms for different types of workshops and what we call make and take. We do birthday parties, etc., but then we also do workshops. We have a huge, in fact, an amazing, I think we have 20 some odd workshops per month. It's a pretty vibrant calendar of workshops that are delivered often by members of the creative community. And so we kind of, the way I think about it is how can we serve as a platform for our community to engage and work with each other and serve each other around creativity and around reuse. In addition, we leave the building, so we have a team and a couple of cool blue scrappy vans that we fill with blue barrels, and we'll take them to various events and schools and other organizations or activities to have a scrap experience elsewhere. And so that team is awesome, and a lot of opportunity there. In fact, I'd court the wisdom of this team in terms of how else and where else we can grow this work. So that's programs and outreach. Across all of this, this might be a bit abstract, but I think I was thinking this particular group, this coalition, might find this intriguing. But from my first few months here, I really spent just listening and having conversations with everyone and doing shifts in all the different jobs, from taking in donations to sorting through clothes to fabric and cutting fabric and pricing it, etc., and asking a lot of questions of the staff and our customers to start to better understand who we are and what we do. And one of the really intriguing kind of things that sort of arose is that there's a number of different tensions that our staff is constantly trying to balance. And one of the most significant tensions is what you see here on the diagram, that we are constantly trying to achieve a few different goals simultaneously. So one, on the bottom left, there's revenue. So we are a nonprofit organization, but we need to make money in order to pay our staff. And as of right now, and I'll show you a slide in a minute that shows this, we are predominantly earned income revenue based. So almost all of our funding comes from the money that we are generating through the stores and through our programs and outreach. And so revenue is a necessary element. But then in the kind of the top is the constant, what I call throughput, which means essentially the volume that we're working on. So how much stuff are we taking in as donations, and how much stuff then are we moving out the door through sales to our customers and our guests. So that's kind of the second tension. And then the third tension, which is really then touches most strongly to the mission, is keeping stuff out of the landfill. And the way I think about it is, again, it is very much a tension diagram. It's impossible for us to maximize all three at once. If we want to generate more revenue, then kind of you can imagine these other dots, these other points of the triangle kind of get pulled in. So as an example, if you think of, say, Goodwill, which is another thrift store, thrift is not their mission. They have a different mission. Their thrift stores are entirely and intentionally and explicitly a revenue generator for them. So they aim to drive a lot of revenue, right? But as a result, they end up potentially throwing a lot of stuff into the trash. The donations that they get, if they can't move something, then they might be more likely to go into the landfill. And from a volume perspective, they care less about how many pounds, so to speak, or how many units they're moving. It's all in service to kind of revenue. Versus us, revenue, we need it, but what we're much more intrigued with is how much stuff can we take in and move out, and then associated with that, therefore, save from landfills. And so this is a big kind of question that I'm trying to engage the team around. Is there's no right answer. What feels right for us? If we want to grow as an organization, we need to grow our revenue. And so does that mean that? And then if we want to do that, but not put more stuff in the landfill, that means we also need to improve our productivity and our throughput. And so this is kind of a constant balance that I'm encouraging our team members to think about as we think about and changing the way we work and what we do and how we do it. The other major tension we have is the financial one. And so as I mentioned a moment ago, so this is our budget, 2.7. So we're a $2.7 million organization without the property, which I'll get to in a second, without the property component. So the scrap exchange business itself is a $2.7 million business. And then as you can see, 2.35 million of that is from the retail. And then the programs and outreach is kind of the next component. So we are almost entirely earned income supported with the current model that we have. The fundraising component there, that 156, that's even a bit misleading, because a significant component of that fundraising is what we refer to as roundups. So they're donations that are made at the cash register. So even a good deal of our fundraising is still related directly to the retail business. There's only a very small component of our funding which comes from kind of traditional grants. In fact, I think we only have one grant right now, or individual and corporate donations. So that remains the contributed income component remains a significant opportunity for us. But it's also lovely to come into a business, to come into a nonprofit that has a very stable, a relatively stable financial picture, right? Because we are not beholden to trying to raise money each year and the whims of getting a particular grant or a particular grant maker or grant giver. Then it's really nice to be able to rely on a cash stream that's coming in, and then I can literally look at sales figures on a daily basis. So it's a cool for me, at least where I am coming from a commercial background, to be able to have that commercial operation, but for a social mission. The interesting part then is if we look at the cost part of the figure, so the bars are equal because we're a nonprofit, but the vast component of our costs go into our staff, into our labor costs. It is a very labor-intensive operation to take in these donations and sort them, pre-sort them, and sort them again, and get them out onto the floor. And so staff is the big cost for us. And I'm really, in fact, quite keen on increasing salary, increasing our pay rates here. And so driving revenue, increasing revenue, but then even pouring more of that back into staff. Rent and facilities is kind of the next major component. With loans, We have mortgages on the property that we sit on, as well as some loans from with the federal government that we got during the pandemic, and then insurance and fees. And so the reason I'm showing this picture as well, I'm be curious to see similar diagrams with y'all. But like I've been very transparent with these numbers with our staff so that they can really see what we're making and where it goes to, and the fact that actually we have very, very little wiggle room in terms of cost savings, so to speak. That all of these things, like the blue, the pink, the purple, and the gray here, are really it's very stuff that we can't just, you know, throttle up and down as we so choose. And so, if we want to grow our organization, then we also need to grow our revenue in tandem. Does that make sense? I can't see anybody's too many faces, so I'm hoping this is useful. So this is then what I alluded to in the beginning, but I actually believe there's a lot more that we can do. And this is another conversation I've had with staff and with the board that, again, most people think about us as a store, as a thrift store, and as a creative arts store. But neither of those things are in our mission. We are not a mission. We are not an organization was explicitly has to have a thrift store or has to even use retail as the means by which we achieve that mission. It's those are the strategic decisions that have been made historically, and they're wonderful and they're great. And but my question then becomes, how can we use what we're currently doing as a foundation? How can we build upon the success of the retail operation to do more, to better achieve the goals that we have, and not just the goals we have, but the mission that we've set ourselves. And so one of those things that I've alluded to also as well is what we've referred to as the Reuse Arts District. So many of you might be familiar, but perhaps not all of you, familiar with that we as the Scrap Exchange own the property that we sit on. So we're in a historic shopping center, the Lakewood Shopping Center, with the shops at Lakewood, right outside downtown in Duke. And this is very much thanks to the brilliance and presence of one of my predecessors, a woman named Ann Woodward, and her team, including folks like Madeline, who had the very clever and bold thought to seek financing to purchase the property that we sit on, back when property was still reasonably affordable here in Durham. So this was 10, 15 years ago that this was done. So Scrap Exchange itself sits in a building which used to be a movie theater, and then we own about half of this strip mall. By the picture, I can't remember if I had no, I did not. We own about half of the strip mall, which has been slowly but surely kind of filled with tenants that are also tend to be either creative businesses or change-making organizations. So there's a Duke Health Clinic here. There is a food bank here. El Centro Hispano is based here. In fact, they've been here even before we were. El Futuro is based here, and then we also have several small creative businesses. We have a sound engineer, sound studio, music studio. We have an arts company, and then a business called Bright Black, which does scent-based storytelling. They're really super cool. And we also have a community church, Oak Church, and then finally Insight Co-Learning, which is a micro school. So it's a very diverse set of tenants, but all of whom kind of are broadly speaking aligned with sort of the mission and orientation of our organization. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the vision that Anne had was very much to do a really proper piece of placemaking and to make a true reuse arts district, to create another destination here in Durham focused on sustainability and creativity. And the various things happened in the past that kind of plan and that vision sort of got put on the shelf. And one of my big ambitions in taking this role, with the full support, backing, and desire of the board, is to pull this idea back off the shelf and to redevelop our property as a reuse arts district. So that will include residential, so going to include some affordable housing. It will continue to include commercial and more retail. It'll ideally also include potentially some commercial space for organizations that are in the sustainability and creativity world. And I'm really, really super excited for this to happen. The plan is to kind of kick off this fall with a community engagement process to sort of refresh what was done 10, 15 years ago, and also build upon a lot of the community engagement work that's been happening since then within Durham, within the city and county, and by Duke, and to really again tap into the Lakewood community and also the creative community here in the Triangle, and do some co-visioning. Participatory design happens to be also an area of expertise and background for me personally. That's what I've done really the past 15 years of my career is a heavy work in inclusive and participatory design. And so it was another reason I was very excited to get this job, is because I'm excited to practice it myself for my own organization. And so the RAD is what we call a Reuse Arts District. This is a big one. This is a big piece of what will be taking our focus. But even then, that's still not all we can do. So what else can we do? So you all might be familiar with kind of the concept of a logic model. Those are my words at the top. Here, inputs activity, one feeds to the next. Inputs drives activities, that drives outputs, that drives outcomes, that drives overall impact. So many of you may have done this sort of activity within your organizations. We have not, or at least we haven't done it in the memory of anybody that's here. And so this is something I'm really keen to do with our board. We have a strategy retreat that's going to be in this fall, is to step back with them and really think through. So we have the mission at a high level, but what does that really mean? What is our theory of change? And what is our logic model? And so if we know that kind of our impact goal, and this is my musing, this is all stuff that we need to work through with the board, but conceptually, if their impact goal that we're trying to achieve is a healthier planet through sustainable consumption, right? So we talk about reuse, that is in our mission. And so if we really think about us as part of the consumption cycle or the consumption system, how can we encourage more sustainable consumption? So that's the impact we want to have. We also have we have a sense that that's probably true. We also have a good sense of our inputs, at least as they currently are. So our inputs are our resources. So we know donated goods are certainly a major input that we have. But then also our staff, our community relationships, the knowledge and experience that we've gathered over 3.5 decades of working here. So we have some things that we know. But what I really want to do with the board is to really think through the outcomes. Well, how are we really driving this impact? Because what's interesting about our mission and what is interesting about the scrap is a lot of people sort of interpret it in very different ways. So some people think about us as a place that helps, reduce, the things that are going to the landfill. Is that the primary outcome that we want to focus on? A lot of us, again, see us as a place for art supplies and creative supplies. And so, nurturing the creativity and nurturing the creative sectors. Is that our primary focus? Is it around advocating for a circular economy, right? So as we talked about the consumption system, so we are, how can we push for a more circular economy and for reuse as a component of that? So the notion that we're not just thinking about also reuse on the back end, but how is used and reuse even being a consideration by manufacturers as they conceive and design a product, that there is a notion of designing for reuse. So is that a part of what we want to do? And where's even a meta kind of aspect? Would we want to what degree are we trying to change public attitudes towards used? This is a phrase I've been using recently, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the thing that we should be focused on. So this is an activity that I'm really excited to do with our board, is to really tease out from them what are the outcomes that they think we should be doing and should be prioritizing. Because there's probably lots of things we can go after, but how do we really want to focus our efforts? Because without that, without really knowing what I'm trying to accomplish, it's very difficult for us to first figure out what activities we want to do, and second, kind of what outputs we want to measure. How are we getting some sort of indication that we're succeeding in what we're accomplishing? So the activities is the part I really want to even, zoom this group in on. So again, as I mentioned, we have a reuse art store, we have a thrift store, we have programs and outreach. Those are our existing interventions, our existing models. RAD is one that I'm hoping will emerge and become a platform for others, right? So not just for us, but for others. Consulting is something that my understanding is the organization has tried in the past as well, and in terms of providing consulting to other reuse art centers or to other entities that are interested in the concept of reuse. Is that a space for us to build up? Research and advocacy is something I've been talking a lot about here and with our board as a potential space that I think we need to get into. Part of this is bias because I used to be a policymaker and worked in government. That I have a strong kind of interest in kind of being able to conduct research that can then feed policy proposals and advocacy work. But this to me is really important because for all of these things, I have no idea how well we're doing. I've got no clue. The thing we know is our sales and and we can use that as a proxy for how much stuff we are moving through the door, and potentially therefore we can measure how much we are delaying going to the landfill. But is that a lot? Is it little? Should we be doing a lot more? Are we moving the needle in any significant way? But given that $2.7 million investment, right, that we're making every year, are we succeeding even with that activity? To what degree are public attitudes towards used? First of all, I need a baseline. I don't even know what public attitudes towards used are to begin with. How many people are even think about used in a positive way or a negative way? How many people are shop at thrift stores or at eBay or at consignment stores or at Rent the Runway, right? To what degree is used part of the consumption system already? And so we need to establish a baseline, some understanding there to even know whether or not later on how do we evaluate to determine if we're pulling any of this off? What role again can we play as an advocate and as an advocacy organization in the circular economy and the circular system, so on and so forth. And so this is something I'm very keen on doing with our board, selfishly, just so I can then have a strong sense of what we can orient the team towards, and we can start to build again a 3 and 5 year roadmap of our work and activity and investment and evaluation, so that I know and we can talk about what we're doing and how we're doing and whether or not our interventions are working. So that is something I'm really keen on doing, but I'm also keen on the wisdom of this group, because while I may have done a lot of logic models in the past, done a lot of theory of change work in the past, this particular world, the world of sustainability and the world of the circular economy, is newer to me. So I've been doing a lot of homework, but I'm very keen to tap into kind of the knowledge of this group in terms of what you think we could be doing as the scrap exchange here locally in Durham, but then also, nationally and even globally, if we have that ambition. So that is, I think, it. As I mentioned earlier, also just to kind of wrap things up, it's our 35th anniversary, so we're going to hopefully be seeing a campaign, and I can be connecting with a bunch of you as we start to do more collaborations as part of our 35th anniversary. So thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time.
Do we have some questions for Mitch?
Sharing. I don't know if you're all completely bored out of your minds.
No, that was awesome. Thank you very much. Feel free to just speak up or raise your hand.
I've been an educator too, so I can call on people.
I would just say very much welcome. Scrap Exchange is such a beloved part of our community and my family. So I'm really excited to hear the background you bring, such an interesting background, and all that is in the works and to come with Scrap Exchange is amazing. If we do have ideas or whatever, is that something that is like during that community visioning process that you said was going to happen in the fall? Is that kind of where you would expect to see that?
I'd say it's a yes and thing. So absolutely, particularly as it relates to RAD, which is the physical property and kind of placemaking endeavor. Because we're also doing that sort of in concert or to align. So the city is also doing, as you may be aware, a small area plan for Lakewood and the West End. So we're trying to be part of that and participating in that so that we can align with what's emerging from that. Although our focus is really very much just on this property. So yes, so that's absolutely a part of it, but then also another piece, particularly Tobin, it's wonderful to see you on this call. Given all of the incredible work you did and probably are still doing with the museum. And so, yeah, I mean, other thoughts again that you all have, ideas you have for a role that Scrap Exchange can play in the sustainability, again, ecosystem here. Again, regionally or even further afield, I'm very, very open. One of the reasons I was intrigued with the role and with this is that with the homework that I did before coming in, I think that reuse, if we think about the 3 R's of reduce, reuse, recycle, I think reuse, at least from what I read, there's less research, there's just less data on it. The recycling and reduction seem to there's a lot of emphasis on them. Great, which is rightly. I don't think there's trying to make any kind of judgment there. But the reuse component just seems to be a significant area of opportunity for and that the scrap is well positioned to play kind of a leadership role there.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to all to come and wish you the best.
Thank you,
look forward to working with you. All the things.
And Jennifer?
Yes, first of all, Mitch, just welcome and really glad to hear your interest and your vision. I've been engaged with scrap since it was in Liberty Warehouse. From the very beginning, I brought art friends to Durham who just were astounded at this wonderful thing. I was aware of all the planning that went on to the last iteration of all the wonderful things that might be done around scrap being at Lakewood, and was sad to see that go by the wayside. And I'm very interested in the small area plan. And I've been advocating with the city to stop clear cutting forests in natural areas and start really seriously infilling. So I'm excited to hear you talk about affordable housing being part of the plan. That asphalt has sat there heating up the planet for years, and that's the place to bring in people who can then use all of the facilities that are around. So I really think that's a great idea. I was reflecting today, listening to the Duke people on this call. Where's the Duke Sustainability Office? I guess they focus on really big things like climate commitment to carbon neutrality, but it seemed to me that somebody at some level in that office might be joining. And they are, of course, doing outreach to attempt always to be a better neighbor. And I say that as a 35-year employee of Duke and parent and graduate, blah, blah, blah. So, this is the time to seize their attention for ideas and funding, because they're under pressure as always, to get more engaged in the community. So I'm sorry.
I very much appreciate that.
Rambling, but those are some thoughts for you.
That was a great ramble, actually, and I appreciate it. So some of you may know this, but Duke is one of the entities that helped the Scrap Exchange and acquire the property. So we received a loan from Duke via self-help. So they're one of the investors in what we're doing, and I'm very keen to build upon that, frankly. And so I'm very welcome to any suggestions in terms of folks to chat with. I've already started conversations with Duke Community Affairs, and then with Duke Arts as well, because of the creative angle, obviously. And then the Duke Nicholas School. So I'm delighted to see some of you on this call. Some of you may know one of your faculty members, Jim Heffernan. He's done a lot of work around urban ecology and increased density. And so we are hopefully going to be able to collaborate with him and his students around Lakewood being a kind of a case study and as a laboratory for how to take what he refers to. In fact, he had a great phrase, which I'm giving him credit for, but stealing scrap pieces of land, right? Which I really dig, is the Scrap Exchange, where you have these, poorly utilized pieces of land, in particular parking lots and strip malls, which dot the landscape, right, of the United States, if not, globally. And so to be able to have a laboratory in a space that we can work on a reimagination, which is both commercially viable and socially supportive is just something that I think is super exciting. And you talk about the asphalt, like I call it an ocean of asphalt. And one of the projects I worked on when I was at the museum through with Tobin and through one of my a fabulous individual there named Max Cawley. If some of you hopefully have met him. He and Madeline are two of the people that have really introduced me most to the world of the environment and sustainability. But we did a big urban heat island project for some time. That's always stuck with me. And every time I walk out into that parking lot, particularly when it's hot, it pops in my brain. Now, one of the things that we're just to, share with you the minutia, because you're all leaders in different ways. You're probably always intrigued with the minutia that other leaders face. So one half of the parking lot is out of the complex, generally speaking, we own or control. The other half is owned by an organization called Brody Co., which is a private developer. I don't think they're evil at all per se. I'm looking to meet with them. But one of the things that they're constrained by, and therefore we are constrained by, is they have a long-term lease with Food Lion. Now we want Food Lion to be here. Grocery store is great. Food Lion wants to be here. But the Food Lion lease predates a lot of stuff, such that they have what they refer to as an encumbrance on the whole parking lot. So if we want to do any development of the parking lot, I want to dig it up. Literally, I want to dig it up. Very keen on digging up and putting green space. We need to work with Food Lion headquarters and get them to sign off. When I talk about advocacy, like the advocacy is both big and it's small, and that's something we're going to have to work through and figure out as we pull this forward.
Fascinating. Jennifer?
I don't want
And
to.
then let me just say, so after we have your question, we'll have about maybe 2 minutes more for questions, and then we'll want to leave some time for announcements and other discussion. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, I don't want to dominate, but
You're fine.
we are working on pocket parks around Scrap and around Lakewood. So a neighbor is working on and has called for a work day to clean up an area behind the church and start working on that. And Tobin,
that just happened last week, actually.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry. I was out. But Tobin and others are working on a Durham City County open space plan, looking to, and I hope, piece together small green places in order to create more wildlife habitat. And so, looking at the city open space might be someplace to go as well. And that's that.
Oh, I love that. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I would like to get involved. Weirdly, one of the activities I did at the one of the spaces I was involved in with National Geographic, which was my prior employer, was I worked with a number of explorers who were working around the globe on what they refer to as wildlife corridors. And so, how do you create green spaces that are connected ideally across very large regions in order to enable wildlife to transit and migrate? And so, the notion of something like that here in Durham is very exciting. So that's cool. I feel like I'm also dominating.
Any other last minute questions? Anybody else? Okay, I will pause the recording, and then we have time for announcements or a discussion about other topics.
Thank you all, everybody.